If you're hearing this story for the first time, make sure you hit that subscribe button right now. Because what you're about to hear will change the way you look at every relationship in your life. This is the gold digger's last gamble, and it starts with a ring that never found a finger. Leo Whitfield stood in the hollow echo of what had been their home, a cathedral of marble and glass on the 43rd floor, now stripped to its bones. The movers had come that morning. The art was gone. The furniture, wrapped in quilted blankets, loaded onto a truck bound for auction. What remained was the skeleton of a life, nail holes in plaster, dust outlines where frames had hung, and the faint scent of gardenia perfume clinging to the hallway like a ghost refusing to leave. His gardenia, hers, Amy's. He turned a small velvet box over in his fingers. Inside sat a ring. 5 carats, cushion cut, flawless. He'd picked it himself from a dealer in Antwerp, carried it home in his coat pocket for 3 weeks while he rehearsed the words. Now the diamond caught the gray light from the window and threw fractured rainbows across the empty wall, like color, trying desperately to exist in a world drained of it. 47 minutes ago, Amy had walked out the door, not with tears, not with hesitation, with the clipped efficiency of someone canceling a subscription they no longer found useful. She'd packed 2 suitcases, the monogrammed Louis Vuitton set he'd bought her for their first Christmas, and called a car. When Leo asked where she was going, she hadn't even looked up from her phone. Somewhere that isn't here, Leo. Just like that. 3 years compressed into 7 words. 3 years earlier, Leo Whitfield was the kind of man people whispered about at parties, not because of scandal, but because of the sheer impossibility of his success. 38 years old, self-made, a quant fund that started in a rented office above a dry cleaner and grew into Whitfield Capital, a firm managing $14 billion in assets. He'd done it with math, discipline, and a near-pathological tolerance for solitude. Relationships were variables he couldn't model. Trust was an unforced error he refused to commit. The Children's Harvest Gala was an annual event Leo attended out of obligation, not sentiment. His foundation donated, he shook hands, he left. That was the formula. It had worked flawlessly for 6 years. Then he saw her. She was standing near the silent auction table, one hand resting on the glass case, displaying a weekend package to St. Bart's, the other holding a champagne flute she barely sipped. Her hair was chestnut brown, swept over one shoulder, and her dress was midnight blue, elegant but understated, the kind of choice a woman makes when she knows how to command attention without begging for it. What stopped Leo wasn't her beauty, though that was considerable. It was the expression on her face as she studied the auction items, a quiet, almost tender concentration, as though she were weighing not their monetary value, but the good they might do. "You're assessing the charity's overhead ratio," Leo said, appearing beside her. "Aren't you?" She turned. Her eyes were green-gray, vivid and unreadable as sea glass. "Guilty," she said, and the corners of her mouth lifted, not a full smile, but an invitation to one. "The dinner cruise package is valued at $8,000, but the estimated beneficiary impact is barely $1,200. Terrible ratio." "It's worse than that," Leo said. "The resort donates those weekends as a tax write-off. Their actual cost is under $500, so the real match rate is closer to 2.5 to 1 against the charity." She tilted her head. "You've done the math on a silent auction?" "I've done the math on everything." "And yet you're here anyway, writing the check regardless of the ratio." Something shifted in her expression, a flicker of warmth behind the analytical mask. as though she'd just discovered something she hadn't expected to find. Because ratios measure efficiency, Leo said quietly. They don't measure necessity. The children still need the help, even if the delivery system is imperfect. She extended her hand. Amy Hartwell. Leo Whitfield. Her grip was firm. Her palm was cool. And Leo felt, for the first time in longer than he could remember, the unsettling pull of an equation he couldn't solve. They dated for 2 months before Amy told him about the fire. It was a Sunday evening. She'd cooked risotto, the third meal she'd made for him, each one slightly more elaborate, as though she were incrementally revealing the depth of her care. They sat on her couch, wine catching lamplight, and the conversation drifted toward family, as conversations inevitably do when two people are falling in love and need to map each other's wounds. I don't have anyone, Amy said. She said it simply, the way people state facts they've long since stopped grieving. My parents died when I was 19. House fire, electrical fault. They were asleep. Leo reached for her hand. She let him take it but didn't squeeze back. I'm sorry. It was a long time ago. She took a breath. After that, it was just me and my younger sister, Quinn. She was 16. I raised her while I finished school, waitressed during the week, typed legal depositions at night. She went to college on a scholarship, moved to Portland, got married. We talk on holidays. That must have been incredibly hard. The hardest part wasn't losing them, Amy said, and here her voice shifted, grew thinner, more fragile, like glass under pressure. It was learning that the insurance company disputed the claim, called the electrical fault preventable maintenance failure, refused to pay. I buried my parents with money I borrowed at 23% interest from a man who broke my roommate's arm 3 months later when she missed a payment. Leo stared at her. In his world, capital moved frictionlessly. Institutions honored contracts. Lawyers enforced promises. The idea of a 19-year-old girl standing alone against an insurance company and a loan shark struck him with a force he wasn't prepared for. Amy, I'm not telling you for sympathy, she said quickly, and for the first time her eyes glistened. I'm telling you because I need you to understand something about me. I survived by learning that the world doesn't protect people who wait to be saved. I protect myself now. Sometimes that means I'm guarded. Sometimes that means I push people away before they can leave first. It's not fair to anyone who cares about me, and I know that. But it's the only way I know how to exist. She wiped her eyes with the back of her hand, a swift, almost angry gesture, as though annoyed at her own tears. Leo pulled her close. She pressed her face into his shoulder, and he felt the dampness seep through his shirt. And he thought, I will never let anyone hurt you again. What he didn't think, what he couldn't have thought in that moment, intoxicated by proximity and purpose, was that every great lie is constructed on a scaffolding of smaller truths. The fire had happened. The insurance company had denied the claim. But the loan shark, the roommate's broken arm, the desperate nights juggling work and child-rearing, all of it was theater. Carefully researched, precisely calibrated theater. Amy Hartwell had never waitressed. She'd never typed a legal deposition. And the sister in Portland, named Quinn Hartwell, did exist. She lived in Portland, answered the phone on holidays, and received a monthly wire transfer from an account Amy managed through a shell company. In exchange, Quinn performed her role with the mechanical reliability of a clock, warm enough to convince, distant enough to never interfere. Amy's tragedy was real, but Amy Hartwell was not. Dara Winslow had been Leo's chief of staff for 9 years. She was 44, unmarried by choice, and possessed a quality that Leo valued above all others in his professional life. She told him the truth, even when the truth was inconvenient, especially when it was inconvenient. "You've been different since her," Dara said, seated across from Leo's desk, with a tablet balanced on her knee. It was 5 months into the relationship, and this was the first time she'd addressed it directly. "Different how?" "Lighter, less guarded, which should make me happy. And part of me is. But another part of me, which is the part that's kept you out of trouble for nearly a decade, has a few questions." Leo leaned back. "Ask." "How well do you actually know her?" "I know she lost her parents young, raised her sister alone, constructed herself from nothing with no help. She's honest, Dara, painfully honest. She told me things about her past that most people would bury." "Or she told you exactly what she wanted you to hear." Leo frowned. "That's a cynical read. It's a cautious read. I ran a basic background check." "You ran a background check on my girlfriend?" "I run background checks on everyone who gets within arm's reach of you. It's literally my job." Dara set the tablet down. "Her records are unusually clean. No credit history before age 22. No social media presence older than 3 years. The fire is real. I confirmed the report. Parents deceased, electrical cause, insurance denied. But everything after that? It's like Amy Hartwell, materialized from thin air at age 22, with a fully formed identity, and no paper trail leading up to it. People reinvent themselves after trauma, Dara. They don't leave neat trails. Some do. Most don't erase every trace. I'm not saying she's hiding something. I'm saying she's hiding something." Leo was quiet for a long time. Then, "I appreciate your diligence, but I trust her. I'd appreciate it if you'd let this go." Dara studied his face. She recognized the expression, the particular rigidity around his jaw, the way his eyes stopped moving when he'd already decided. She'd seen it during bad trades, during personnel crises, during every moment Leo had confused conviction with certainty. "All right," she said, "but if you ever want me to look again, the file stays on my desk." The signs were small. Individually, each was explainable. Together, they formed a pattern that Leo, who had made his fortune identifying patterns others missed, should have seen far sooner. At a dinner with a business associate, Amy corrected the associate's pronunciation of Gewürztraminer with the casual precision of a sommelier. Wine expertise was harmless, but the correction came with an aside to Leo about her time studying viticulture in Bordeaux, a claim she'd never made before, and one that evaporated from her vocabulary the moment the associate left. She knew the retail price of every item of clothing Leo bought her, down to the penny, but couldn't recall the name of the hospice nurse she claimed to have befriended during her mother's final days. She flinched at a loud noise at a construction site, a reasonable trauma response for a fire survivor, yet lit candles throughout the penthouse every evening without hesitation. And then there was the phone. Leo noticed it on a Tuesday night, about a year in. Amy's phone buzzed on the nightstand at 11:47 p.m. She reached for it with the reflex speed of someone who'd been waiting for the signal, glanced at the screen, and placed it face down on the mattress. Her expression, for 2 seconds, was one he'd never seen her wear. Alert, strategic, almost predatory. Then it vanished, replaced by her usual warmth. "Work thing," she said. "I'll handle it tomorrow." She did not have a job. Leo said nothing. He lay in the dark, listening to her breathing slow into sleep, and for the first time, he let the doubt surface fully, not pushing it down, but holding it in front of him like a specimen, examining its contours. It was ugly. It was heavy. and it would not go back in the box. Leo did not confront Amy. He did what he'd always done when faced with an unreliable variable. He gathered data. He hired a private investigative firm, separate from his usual security team, paid through a personal account with no connection to Whitfield Capital. The instruction was simple. Find everything. Leave nothing unexamined. The preliminary report arrived 14 days later, delivered by hand in a plain manila envelope. Leo opened it alone at midnight in his study. Amy Hartwell's Social Security number was issued when she was 22. Not at birth. Not at 16, as would be typical for a late registration. 22. The exact age Dara had flagged as her earliest verifiable record. Prior to age 22, there existed a different person. Alexis Crane, born in Bakersfield, California. Parents, deceased, house fire, electrical fault, insurance denied. This part matched. But after the fire, Alexis Crane did not raise a younger sister, waitress, or type legal documents. Alexis Crane, at age 20, was arrested in Nevada for petty theft. At 21, she was questioned, but not charged, in connection with a fraudulent insurance scheme involving staged car accidents. At 22, Alexis Crane disappeared, and Amy Hartwell appeared. Same face, same fire, new name, new story. The sister in Portland, Quinn Hartwell, was real. But Quinn's surname, until 3 years ago, had been Crane. It was changed legally at Amy's expense, in a straightforward petition that cited personal safety concerns arising from domestic situations in youth. Leo closed the file. His hands were steady. His breathing was measured. He'd processed worse information during market crashes, watching billions evaporate in minutes without flinching. But this was different. This wasn't a number on a screen. This was the woman who fell asleep with her head on his chest, who laughed at his terrible jokes, who held his hand in the MRI room when they found a benign cyst on his kidney, and he pretended he wasn't scared. Every gesture of vulnerability she'd shown him, was it a calculation? Every tear, every confession, every moment she'd let her guard slip, was it choreography? He didn't know, and not knowing was unbearable. He called Dara at 12:17 a.m. She answered on the second ring. I need to talk to you. In person. Tomorrow. I'll be there at 7. When Leo hung up, he opened his top drawer and removed the ring box, the one he'd bought 3 weeks earlier, the one he'd been carrying like a secret heart. He stared at it for a long time. Then he put it back in the drawer and closed it with a decisive click. The proposal was on hold. The test was about to begin. Vance Hyatt had been with Whitfield Capital since its second year. He was meticulous, emotionless about money, and utterly discreet. I need a bankruptcy, Leo said. Vance blinked. You want me to file? No. I want you to simulate one. Convincingly. Leaks to the press. Restructuring rumors. Asset freeze notifications that look official. I need the world, specifically one person, to believe I've lost everything. Dara spoke first. Leo, this is necessary. His voice was flat, final. I have reason to believe Amy isn't who she says she is, but reason isn't proof. I need to see what she does when she thinks there's nothing left to take. And if she stays? Dara asked. Then I'm wrong, and I'll spend the rest of my life making it up to her. And if she leaves? Leo paused. Something shifted behind his eyes, a wall going up, brick by brick, sealing off a room he might never reopen. Then I'll have my answer. It began with a whisper. Whitfield Capital faces liquidity crisis after leveraged position unravels. The headline appeared on Bloomberg at 9:14 a.m. on a Wednesday. By noon, it was everywhere. Financial Twitter erupted. Competitors called, feigning concern, probing for weakness. The board scheduled an emergency session. Leo played his part convincingly, which, given that the crisis was manufactured, required a paradoxical kind of acting. He had to simulate the genuine terror of a man watching his empire dissolve while simultaneously knowing it was safe. The cognitive dissonance was staggering, and it aged him visibly in the span of 72 hours. He came home that first evening and sat on the couch with his head in his hands. Amy knelt beside him. "What's happening?" she asked. "Bad trade, leveraged position in Southeast Asian debt. The market moved against us, and I didn't hedge fast enough." He looked up at her. His eyes were red. He'd applied drops. "Amy, I might lose everything." Her expression cycled through concern, shock, and something else. Something that passed so quickly, he might have imagined it. Calculation. The faintest flicker of a mind running numbers. "We'll figure it out," she said. Her hand found his. Her grip was warm. "Whatever happens, we'll handle it together." Together. The word hung between them like a promise or a test. Over the following week, the situation worsened, or appeared to. Bank representatives visited the penthouse. Legal notices arrived in stiff envelopes. Leo's personal credit cards were declined at a restaurant. An excruciating moment he hadn't scripted, and one that felt devastatingly real, even though the money was secure in accounts the simulation couldn't touch. Amy watched. She asked questions. She offered to sell her jewelry, generous on the surface, but she cataloged each piece with a precision that suggested she already knew its resale value. On day 8, Leo told her the foundation was being audited. On day 9, he said the board had voted to replace him as CEO. On day 10, 10 days of watching, waiting, gathering evidence of a loyalty he still desperately hoped would materialize, he delivered the final blow. "Amy." He stood in the doorway of the bedroom, shoulder against the frame, arms crossed. She was folding a cashmere sweater into one of the Louis Vuitton suitcases, though he hadn't yet asked her to leave. "The lawyers say I'm likely to face personal liability. They're talking about asset forfeiture. The penthouse, the cars, the accounts, everything tied to my name could be seized within 30 days. She set the sweater down, sat on the edge of the bed. "What does that mean for—" She stopped herself, restarted. "What does that mean for us?" "It means I have nothing. Or I will, very soon." He crossed the room and crouched in front of her, taking her hands. This part wasn't acting. None of this part was acting. "I need to know, Amy, right now, if you're staying, because I can't do this alone. I won't." Her eyes searched his. For one terrible, breathless moment, he thought he saw the answer he wanted. He thought he saw love, real love, the kind that outlasts comfort and convenience. Then she looked away. "Leo, She pulled her hands back gently. "I can't do this. I can't go back to having nothing. I spent my entire 20s surviving, and I promised myself I would never. I can't. Do you understand? I physically cannot." He stared at her. "I'm sorry," she said, and something in her voice suggested she meant it. On some abstract level, in some compartment of herself she rarely accessed, she was genuinely sorry. But sorry and staying are different verbs, and she had chosen hers. She stood, picked up the suitcase, walked to the door, paused. "Goodbye, Leo." And she was gone. The penthouse was quiet, not the anticipatory quiet of someone waiting for a sound, but the settled quiet of someone who has accepted silence. Leo sat at his desk. The manila folder from the investigation was open in front of him. Beside it sat his phone, displaying a text message Amy had sent 2 days after leaving. A single line. "I hope you land on your feet. You're a good person, Leo." He hadn't responded. Dara arrived at 7. She let herself in and found him exactly where she expected to. At the desk, motionless, the portrait of a man who had been right and wished desperately that he weren't. "It's done?" she asked. She left. 47 minutes after I told her I had nothing. He turned the phone so Dara could see the text. "A good person." That's what she called me. Like a consolation prize. Dara pulled a chair beside his and sat. "What do you want to do now?" "Reverse the bankruptcy. Tell Vance to dismiss the filings. Issue a statement. Quiet. No press conference. I don't want spectacle." "And Amy? Or whoever she is?" Leo touched the manila folder. "Alexis Crane. Her real name is Alexis Crane. Born Bakersfield. Parents died in a fire. That part was true. The rest was fiction. The waitressing, the sacrifices, the sister she raised alone. Quinn is real, but their relationship is transactional. Amy pays her to play a role." "There's more," Dara said quietly. She pulled a folded document from her bag. "I didn't share this with you before because I wanted to be certain. My contact at the investigative firm traced a financial link. Amy, or Alexis, has done this before. Twice. First target was a tech founder in Austin. Second was a real estate developer in Miami. Both men of means. Both relationships lasted between 2 and 3 years. Both ended when the money ran out. Or appeared to." Leo unfolded the document. 2 names, 2 faces. 2 men who had looked at Amy Hartwell and seen exactly what Leo had seen. A wounded soul fighting to survive, worthy of rescue. "She's a professional," he said. "Not with anger, with something flatter, emptier. She is, and you were her highest value target yet." "There's something else," Dara said. Her voice shifted. Careful, deliberate, weighted. "I didn't just investigate Amy. I looked into how she found you. Someone connected her to you, provided the introduction at the gala, arranged the proximity." Leo went still. "Who?" "Remember the catering contractor for the Children's Harvest Gala? The one who handled seating assignments and guest placement? It was a company called Meridian Event Services. Shell company registered in Delaware. Beneficial owner is Clive Ransom." The name detonated in Leo's chest, like a shaped charge. Clive Ransom, Leo's former business partner. The man who'd been with him at Whitfield Capital's founding, and who'd been quietly pushed out in year 4 when Leo discovered he'd been skimming management fees. The departure had been civil on paper, surgically precise in reality. Clive signed an NDA, collected his severance, and disappeared from Leo's world. Until now. "He sent her," Leo said. Not a question. "He groomed her, found Alexis, she was already running smaller cons, and offered her the biggest mark of her career. Your name, your schedule, your psychology. Clive knew you better than almost anyone. He knew your blind spots. The need to rescue," Leo murmured. "He knew I'd fall for someone who seemed broken. He weaponized your empathy, Leo." Leo leaned back. Something shifted. Not grief, not rage, but a crystallizing understanding. The kind of clarity that arrives only after you've walked through fire and realized the flames were pointing somewhere you hadn't thought to look. "Clive wanted to hurt me," he said. "Not financially. He knows I'm untouchable there. He wanted to prove that I'm not special, that I'm just another Mark, just another lonely man with money who can be played by the right actress with the right script. And he succeeded. But here's what Clive didn't anticipate." He paused. "Neither did I." 4 days after she left, Leo called her. She answered on the 4th ring. Her voice was cautious, polite, the careful neutrality of someone managing an exit. "Amy," he said, "I'd like to see you. One last time. No drama, no accusations. Just a conversation." A pause. "All right." They met at the Langham Hotel bar, a neutral space polished and impersonal, designed for brief encounters between strangers. She arrived first, seated at a corner table with a glass of white wine. She looked composed, rested, unburdened. Leo sat across from her. He looked terrible, unshaven, shirt wrinkled, the visible wear of a man who hadn't slept. But his eyes were clear, devastatingly clear. "How are you holding up?" she asked. Genuine concern, or its professional equivalent. "I'm managing. The bankruptcy proceedings are moving faster than expected. I'll likely lose the penthouse." She nodded slowly. "I'm sorry, Leo. Truly." "Are you?" The question landed between them like a dropped stone. Her expression tightened. "What do you want me to say?" "The truth." He leaned forward. "For once in your life, Amy, or whatever your name really is, just tell me the truth." The silence that followed was absolute. Even the bar noise seemed to recede as though the universe itself were leaning in to listen. Her face changed. It was extraordinary to watch. The warmth draining away like water from a sink, the softness hardening, the sympathetic eyes sharpening into something clinical and appraising. It happened in less than 2 seconds, this transformation from Amy Hartwell to Alexis Crane, and it was so complete, so seamless, that Leo understood with sudden, gut-wrenching clarity that Amy had always been the costume. Alexis was the woman underneath. "How long have you known?" she asked. No denial, no protest, just a clean, tactical pivot. "Long enough." "Then why the meeting?" "Closure, catharsis. I can save you the therapy bill. It doesn't work. I've been on both sides of this conversation, and it never provides what people think it will." "I didn't come for closure." He reached into his jacket and withdrew a photograph, placed it on the table between them. "I came for this." She looked at the photograph. It showed 2 men at a restaurant. Clive Ransom and a younger, unfamiliar face, leaning close, laughing, the body language of co-conspirators. "Clive Ransom," Leo said, "my former partner. The man who arranged for you to be at that gala. The man who fed you my profile, my habits, my psychology. How much did he take? 30%? 40? Her jaw tightened. 50. 50. Leo almost smiled. Almost. "He played you too, Alexis. Or have you not noticed? He set you up with a billionaire, guaranteed payout, and then engineered the scenario where the money disappeared before you could secure anything. He didn't want you to succeed. He wanted you to fail. He wanted me humiliated and heartbroken, and you were just the instrument." Something shifted in her expression, the first genuine crack in the armor, because the math was inexorable, and Alexis Crane was, above all, a mathematician of human behavior. Clive had used her. She'd used men for years, and someone had finally used her back. "The bankruptcy," she breathed. "It wasn't real." "No." "You tested me." "Yes, and I—" She stopped, stood. The chair scraped against the floor with a sound like a small animal in distress. "You tested me, like a lab experiment, like a variable in one of your models." "Like a variable?" Leo rose more slowly. "You walked into my life wearing someone else's story. You cried on my shoulder with dry eyes. You told me you loved me while calculating the resale value of the gifts I gave you. Don't talk to me about being treated like a variable." For a moment, one raw, unguarded moment, Alexis looked like she might shatter. Something human and damaged flickered behind the operative's eyes, something that remembered the girl in Bakersfield, standing outside a burning house, with nothing left but the name on her birth certificate. Then it vanished. "You're right," she said. "You're absolutely right. And I'm leaving." She picked up her handbag. "For what it's worth, and I know it isn't worth much, there were moments when I forgot. Moments when it wasn't a con. When you made me laugh or held my hand during that MRI, and I forgot I was supposed to be performing. Those moments were real, whatever that means. It doesn't mean enough, Leo said. No, it doesn't. She walked 3 steps, stopped, turned back. You'll be fine, Leo. You have your money, your company, your brilliant mind. You'll process this. You'll learn from it. And you'll go back to being the untouchable Leo Whitfield. But I want you to remember something. What? The reason Clive's plan worked, the reason I worked, is because you were starving. Not for money. You've never cared about money. You were starving for connection. For someone to see you, not your net worth. And that hunger is still there. It'll still be there after I'm gone. So don't pretend this test proved anything, except that you already know how to protect yourself. She left. The swinging door of the bar released a gust of autumn air, and then the door stilled, and Leo was alone with a glass of wine he hadn't touched, and a photograph of a man who had tried to destroy him. 6 weeks later, the walls of Leo's penthouse were still empty. He had authorized the return of the furniture and the unfreezing of accounts within hours of the Langham meeting, but the art remained in storage. When Dara asked why, he said he wasn't ready to fill the spaces yet. The blank walls reminded him of something important. That absence, once acknowledged, becomes a kind of honesty. She found him at the kitchen counter, brewing coffee with the painstaking precision he applied to everything. The ancient pour-over contraption, the scale, the timer. It was, Dara had long suspected, Leo's way of meditating, forcing slowness into a mind that defaulted to speed. I heard from Clive's lawyer, Dara said. Leo didn't look up. And? He wants to talk. Says Clive is willing to admit everything in exchange for Leo agreeing not to pursue legal action. Generous of him. The lawyer also mentioned off the record that Clive is broke, has been for 2 years. The severance from Whitfield Capital ran out faster than he expected, and his own investments tanked. He orchestrated this whole thing because he was desperate. Leo poured the water in a slow spiral, watched the grounds bloom. So he was hungry too, he said, and hunger makes predators of everyone. Are you going to pursue legal action? No. He set the kettle down, looked at her. Not because he deserves mercy, because I deserve peace. Legal battles are just another way of staying in the room with someone who's already left. Dara nodded. There was a long, comfortable silence, the kind that only exists between people who've stopped needing to fill gaps with noise. Can I ask you something personal? She said. You always do. Were you in love with her? The real her? The one underneath the performance? Leo considered this. His coffee dripped in a steady rhythmic cadence, 4 beats per second, the tempo of a resting heart. I was in love with who I believed she was, he said, which means I was in love with a story I told myself. A story I needed to tell myself because the alternative, that someone could see all of me and still choose to leave, was unacceptable. But she did leave, the real her, when she thought there was nothing left to gain. She did, and in a strange way, I'm grateful, because the worst outcome wouldn't have been losing her. The worst outcome would have been marrying someone who was playing a role for the rest of our lives, never knowing the truth, slowly sensing the performance but never able to name it. That's a slower kind of devastation. This, at least, was clean. Dara reached across the counter and squeezed his hand, brief, firm, the handshake of someone offering solidarity without pity. You're going to be all right, Leo. I know. He picked up his coffee, took a sip, set it down. But being all right and being whole aren't the same thing. And I think I need to sit with that difference for a while before I try to close the gap. Leo looked out the window. The city below was lit with early evening, thousands of lives in motion, each one carrying its own unseen architecture of deception and desire. A faint, weary peace settled into his features, not happiness, but something more durable: comprehension. If you've made it this far through Leo's journey, please take a moment to hit that like button. It helps us share these stories of redemption and truth with others who need to hear them. And if you haven't subscribed yet, now is the perfect time to join our community. We explore the deepest human dramas here, the ones that teach us who we really are when the masks come off. Before we end, let me share one final thought with you. Leo spent his career studying risk, framing models that predict human behavior at scale: when markets panic, when institutions fail, when the crowd turns. He thought he understood how people respond to fear and loss. He thought he could anticipate every variable. He was wrong. You cannot model what someone will do when they believe you have nothing left to give them. You cannot simulate the moment a person decides you're no longer worth the investment, because that decision doesn't happen in the realm of logic or probability. It happens in the basement of the self, the place where survival overrides every prettier instinct. Amy, Alexis, showed him her truth when she thought he had nothing. And the truth was that she was a stranger, a talented, damaged, calculating stranger who knew exactly what she was doing. But here's what Leo has been turning over in his mind these past weeks. She was also right about one thing. He was starving. He is starving. We all are, in different ways. And the bravest thing a person can do is admit that hunger without letting it lead them into the arms of someone who feeds on it. A person's true colors show when they think you have nothing left to offer. Watch carefully in that moment, because that's the only moment that matters. Thank you for listening to the Golddigger's Last Gamble. If this story resonated with you, please share it with a friend who might need to hear it today. Don't forget to subscribe, ring that notification bell so you never miss a new drama, and drop a comment below telling us what's one lesson you've learned from watching someone's true colors reveal themselves. We read every single one of your comments. Until next time, stay brave, stay true, and remember, love is the only currency that never devalues.